Hey, seventh grade, Mr. V here. How you doing? Welcome to the latest installment on the video Google Classroom page. All right, you guys have been waiting for this. This is the Q&A video that I told you was coming. All right, I compiled all the questions that I got from the last video, the last post, and I put them in a spreadsheet. And I got like 80 questions from you guys. I'm not going to answer all 80 of them, but I did pick out like 15 random questions. I haven't prepared for this. Okay. I have not prepared. So I'm going to just kind of like go on the fly and see what we got. I have Mrs. Farrell with me over here who is going to read out the questions for me. And I'm going to just do my best to enjoy this and see if I can give you a couple good answers. All right. So, Mrs. Farrell, what do we got? First one up.
Okay, Mr. B. What is the best studying tip for tests?
Good. It's a good question, Logan. And you know what? I have posted on this, so I encourage you to go back and take a look. But best tip for studying for tests, my goodness. You know, the first thing that comes to mind is just kind of getting started. Get started. One way or another, get started. A lot of times what I see is kids procrastinate and they just never actually get started. And then the next thing you know, it's the day before the test and they're just picking up the book to study. And so I guess what I'm saying is don't spend so much time thinking about how you're going to do it. Just get going, get started. There's so many ways you could study. You could make flashcards and have people quiz you. You could rewrite your notes. You could highlight your notes. You could summarize your notes. You could reread the book. You could, do little quizzes with your friends. There's so many ways to study. I think getting started, doing it little bits over long periods of time, and also trying to make studying fun as much as you can would be my biggest tips. What else you got?
Do you like cats?
Oh, cats. Here's the thing about cats. I always feel like I'm bothering them. Whenever I'm around them, I feel like they don't want to be around me. I don't know. They're like, I think they're like a pretty independent animal. So I don't love cats. I've been scratched a couple times and they got like razor blade claws. So between the razor blade claws and the fact that I always feel like I'm annoying them, I don't love them. Also have a mild allergy to them, so don't love them. Next question.
Why do you want to be a teacher at a school?
Good question, Brett. I love the question. Obviously, I'm a guidance counselor, not a teacher. I understand what you mean, though. And I guess ultimately I got into this profession because I wanted to help people. I wanted to feel like every day when I woke up and went to work, I wanted to really feel like I understood my purpose, understood my mission, understood the value in what I did. So I wanted to make sure that I did something where that was clear to me. And I also love kids, love working with kids, and I value education. So being a guidance counselor seemed like a good fit for me. I think every day I wake up, I know I have the opportunity to impact somebody. And so that's what I set out to do every day, and that's why I got into it. Awesome. Love the question. Wow.
Okay, from Anonymous. How do you deal with stress?
That's a good question. That's a good question. And we all deal with it differently, don't we? I think one thing that I've learned over the years is the value of breathing. It's one of those techniques or strategies that people tell you all the time. And so we almost become numb to it. Like, yeah, I know about breathing, but have you ever really spent time doing it? And for me, it was like, no, here I am acting like this strategy in some way is not a great strategy, but yet I never tried it. And then at a certain point, I started trying it and I really enjoyed it. It slowed me down and it's really helped me. In addition to breathing, I also enjoy working out. That's one thing that I do when I'm feeling stressed. That really helps to clear my mind. And another thing, probably maybe the most important for me, is finding someone in my life that I could talk to. I find like dealing with stress alone is probably the hardest thing to do and maybe the worst thing to do. So as soon as you recognize that you're dealing with something in your life that's stressing you out, the quicker you can get next to somebody, talk it out, probably the better. So working out, talking to someone trusted in my life, and also deep breathing. Those are the three keys. Those really help me. Good question.
Next question. How do you get through a bunch of homework when you are unmotivated?
Oh, gosh. All right, this is hard. I can relate to this. I struggled with this as a kid, but also as an adult in this job. Sometimes I have a lot of work to do, and I'm not always very motivated to do it. And there is one thing that whenever I do it, it totally works. I just need to like remember to do it. Sometimes I forget to use this strategy, but the thing that helps the most is creating a to-do list. And I know you've all heard about that's not like groundbreaking information, but how many of you are actually doing it, right? So before you sit down to do your work, create a to-do list. And on that, you can make it pretty, like get colored pencils, get markers, make this really fun to-do list with little boxes that you can check off after you've done it. And then you could even go a step further to prioritize the to-do list into easiest to hardest. And I always like to knock a couple of the easy things off the list first because I enjoy seeing my list get shorter, even if the list includes some really easy things. And little tips, sometimes I even include really simple things on my to-do list that maybe some wouldn't even put, like open up my computer, get a pencil, things like that, because I just want to get the check marks flowing. I want to start to feel like I'm making progress, and that kind of excites me and gets me moving to kind of motivate myself to get through these things. Great question. Next.
Okay, next question. What are your hobbies?
Hobbies. Answered it a little bit prior. I really like working out. I've got into powerlifting a couple of years back, and I've really enjoyed strength training and trying to lift as much weight as possible. I really like that. That's probably my number one hobby, I would say. Uh, I've also really gotten into cars. I'm a little bit of a car enthusiast. I enjoy learning about cars, learning about engines and all the differences between the cars. I spend a lot of time in my personal life and my downtime working out and learning more about strength training through YouTube videos and books and articles, and also watching videos on cars and reading articles and books about that. Those are, I mean, and then of course I have three boys and a wife, so I love spending time with them and doing whatever I can with them. So those are probably my biggest interests at this point in my life. If you'd asked me that like 15 years ago, I would probably give you a different answer. But that's where I'm at now. Love the question. Next.
Okay. Can you smell what the rock is cooking?
I can, Drew. Thanks for asking. I sure can. Thank you. Next.
Next, anonymous.
Ooh.
What is your favorite thing to eat when you're sad?
Wow. Good question. Good question. Well, I've learned over the years that when I'm sad, I should probably turn to things that are not food, because I know a lot of us, when we're feeling sad or stressed, we tend to eat. And, in the short term, it makes us feel a little better, but in the long term, it actually doesn't. But when I'm stressed out, something that maybe like a bowl of soup, some kind of chicken soup, something that is a little warm, something that's going to remind me of my childhood, a little nostalgic, maybe something like some soup or hot cocoa or something like that. Probably do it, I would say. Good question. Interesting. Next.
Next question. How can you avoid feeling stressed when you have an upcoming test?
Oh, for me, the best way to avoid stress on a test, assessment, or some type of performance or culminating event, right? The best way I've found in my life is to just make sure I'm as prepared as possible. So I know that if I have something big coming up, a test, quiz, performance, whatever, I know that I want to start preparing as early as possible, maybe even earlier than what you would think makes sense, because I know that walking into that test, quiz, performance, if I can feel like I've done everything possible, everything that I can do, then that gives me a lot of peace inside. But when I feel like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, I wish I'd have done more of that, then I go in feeling like a certain amount of hesitation and worry, which ultimately stresses me out and affects my performance. So preparation, preparation, preparation. Next question.
Next question is, if you were a YouTuber and you had a gaming channel, what game would you play?
If I had a gaming, oh guys, honestly, this is easy for me now that I think about it. Now we have Xbox in our house. That's what we have. And the game that I can't get enough of is Forza Horizon 4. It's a racing game and it's absolutely amazing. If you guys don't know about it, you should take a look. This video is not sponsored by Forza, I promise. That's just my opinion. I love it so much. We have like 10 different games, and yet that's the only one I play. And I even find myself playing it a little bit when the kids go to sleep. So don't tell them. So Forza Horizon 4, I'd be doing live. I got the steering wheel and everything. So I'd be doing like live videos of me driving that thing. Good questions, off. Next.
Next, do you ever feel unmotivated or stressed about working? What do you do when you get motivated or calmer about working? What can you do to get motivated or calmer about working?
It's a good question. And yeah, I do. I definitely do. You guys might not think it, but I do get stressed out or anxious about work. And sometimes when I notice that when I'm feeling a lot of stress about work and I'm feeling a lot of anxiety about work, that impacts my output. It impacts my performance in a negative way. I do less. I'm less effective. Um, and so I think the best thing for me to do is to recognize that I'm dealing with stress and anxiety. Like the sooner I can recognize that that's what's happening for me, the quicker I can intervene and then do things like the deep breathing, finding a colleague, talking to my boss, maybe calling my wife for a quick second and having a little pep talk with her. There's even been times where I've went into the gym and done a couple pull-ups because that, working out, like I said earlier, really helps me. So but the key is recognizing that we're stressed. We can sometimes go a long time before we actually recognize that the problem is we're just really stressed out about something. So having like an awareness of your body and yourself really helps so that you can intervene quicker. Good question.
Okay, next question. Can you give us some tips on how to take neat, productive, organized, useful, helpful notes for class?
Wow, good question. I love that you guys are even asking that question. Like you even want to know an answer to that question. It's pretty awesome. You know, I think one thing that you guys could think about doing is typing your notes. Maybe not in the classroom when you're hearing it and getting your notes for the first time, but maybe afterwards. So, for example, maybe during the class, you're not so concerned about how neat it is, right? You just want to get as much of it down as you can, right? You're too busy trying to keep up with the teacher, so you're just writing it down, pages and pages of notes sometimes, right? And then I think the key is going back to those notes later, maybe on a weekend or maybe on a night where you don't have a lot going on, maybe going back to those notes and then maybe typing them. You can read through your notes, you can highlight the things that are important because when we take notes, we know we sometimes will write down things that aren't so important. But at the time, we don't know. So we're just writing as much as we can. But if you go back, highlight, rewrite them, maybe even type them up real nice, and then keep a little file on your computer, social studies notes, boom, type them right up. That's one thing you could do. Um, and it seems like nowadays, since everything's on the computer anyway, that might be a good direction to go for you. So maybe not being so concerned right off the bat with how neat they are, but going back a couple days later or that night and rewriting them or retyping them might be something you want to try. Good question.
Okay, the next question. What subject were you best in at school and why? What was your favorite subject, if different, and why?
Wow. All right. I really excelled in lunch. I mean, I came every, no, I'm kidding. Uh, let's see. I can remember back in like middle school really enjoying science. I think it's not a coincidence that it was also the subject area that I was the best in. I enjoyed feeling successful and I was also interested. So I think that was one. I remember enjoying health class. I thought interesting topics. Um, I found that interesting. In college, I took a lot of classes. Actually, this was long before I knew I wanted to be a guidance counselor. I thought I wanted to be in the business world, and I enjoyed classes like marketing or human resources classes or business management classes. Um, But in terms of middle school and high school, I think science. I tended to enjoy the science classes the most. Good question.
What can I do to boost my English grade up?
Oh, wow. That's a good question and a hard one for me to answer just because I feel like in order for me to give you like a really strong answer here, I'd have to talk to you directly a little bit more to find out what it is you're doing or not doing, where, what are you spending your time on and, um, but for example, I know most of my kids are taking Spruce quizzes every week, right? And I find that a lot of kids are struggling on these weekly Spruce quizzes. And A, I think they're open book, and B, they're every week. So there's a bit of an element of predictability here that I think that if you could find a way to do well on those, if you're not doing well on those, maybe putting in more time or learning how to study these things differently could really help. Are you having trouble with reading comprehension? Are you struggling on the reading checks? Maybe you're reading a book that you don't love. There's lots of ways that you can try to motivate yourself to retain some of that information. I guess what I would say to you, Aiden, is if you're seeing this, maybe stop by the office and we could talk a little bit more directly about how to boost your English grade for sure. One thing I'll just take the opportunity to mention here is that if you have missing work, that's always going to be a problem, right? So we want to make sure we have no zeros in that grade book. So if you're accumulating any zeros in English, definitely want to take care of that. But you should come and see me, spend some time with me. We could take a deeper dive into English and see what's going on for you. All right, guys, that ends Q&A session 1. I have like 60 more questions. Some of them are the same. I'll probably do a part 2 to this video. If you guys liked it, let me know in the comments. If you have any additional questions that you think of, feel free to leave them in the comments. So until next time, stay motivated.